Well, this got messy. X-Men 97, episode 9, penultimate episode of the first season. Tolerance's Extinction Part 2. Not quite as powerful as the previous episode. Actually, in many ways, very much a middle child, even though this is labeled as a Part 2, and I'm pretty sure the next episode has a different title, which would imply that this is wrapping up the story started by the previous episode. It's not really. This is part 2 of 3 is very much what this is. This is picking up on what happened last time, and it is teeing up whatever's going to happen in the next episode. So in and of itself, it is solid. It can't be as remarkable because, honestly, in most cases, the most memorable part of a well-told story is how it started and how it ended. That's not to say that middles don't matter or that they can't be done really well or really poorly, but by and large, if the best part of your story is the middle, you kind of set up a weird flow. But starting strong and ending strong are always more important. And connecting a strong start to a strong finish is usually the overall point of a middle bit. And this does that. It also establishes a couple of things that I found myself asking at the start, which it needed to. People have been really quick to correct me in the comments as I talk about these. So there is a chance that this was established in the previous episode. I don't remember it getting clearly established as to whether or not the Prime Sentinel people were effectively dead. Like, if when they became the Prime Zombies, like, it just overwrote who they were before, and they just, like, it's like zombie rules. Like, yeah, they're moving around or whatever, but, like, they're functionally dead. That's not the same person anymore. I kind of needed them to establish whether or not that was the case, because certain things were odd if it wasn't the case, but it really did seem like the narrative had treated it as if it was the case, because there was virtually no real remnants of the person they were before, like, other than a digitized elements of the voice and obviously the body that they were in. But they do kind of establish, from the hope that is expressed, that maybe we can undo this. Like, oh, okay, so they're not dead. All right, that helped. I kind of need to know that. The massive part of this is the confrontation between Magneto and Professor Xavier. And that is almost always core to the X-Men. Anytime the both of them are in play in a story, you need to deal with both their perspectives. And it's really hard to balance without overly demonizing one or the other. But this manages to do that. And what I mean by you don't want to over demonize one or the other is that Magneto, at this point, given what has happened, is righteously justified and also wrong. What he's doing is wrong. The tell on that is him asking Charles the question, who deserves to live more? The answer to that is nobody. Nobody deserves to live more than anybody else. So the fact that he's even asking that question, to me, shows that, like, he is wrong. However, they've done a very good job of making his actions feel very justified, or at least very motivated, like properly motivated. This isn't even just revenge at this point. This is I can't deal with any of this anymore. I refuse to even exist in a world where what happened in Genosha is even possible. And while what he is doing is wrong, you get it, which is important, especially if you're going to have characters like Rogue and Roberto kind of go over to his side. You need to have it be a not completely unreasonable side, because otherwise you end up with, sorry to cite a J.K. Rowling related thing, but you end up with Goldie switching over to side with Voldemort, despite the fact that the extreme to which he's taking his plan completely counteracts her supposed motivation. Like, she's real sad that she can't be with a Muggle, but he wants to either kill or enslave all the Muggles. Anyways. Those movies are a disaster. But this avoids that problem by making the extent of what Magneto is fighting against very clear. Where on the flip side, with Charles, the show, mostly through Magneto, but does effectively call out the danger of his idealism. This idea of, yes, we are making sacrifices now, but it'll be for a better future. Like, okay, yeah, maybe for the people still here, but there are a ton of people who are now not going to have a future in the pursuit of what you think is best. Charles Xavier is one of those people who you basically can't disagree with what his dream is. His dream is a beautiful thing. It is a thing people should want. What will it take to achieve it? And usually when that question is asked, it's in the form of, oh, like what evil will need to be done in the name of pursuing this supposed utopia. That's your standard dystopic presentation. Like, yes, you have peace, but at what cost? And it's like at the cost of oppression or whatever else. With Charles, it is, yes, eventual peace if you get your dream, but at what cost? But the cost is the lives of people like him and the lives of people around him. How many people are you willing to let die because you have your hyper focus on this idealized dream that, let's be honest for a hot second, might not be possible no matter what you do? And with that factored in, if we don't take it as a given that you are eventually going to succeed, is the degree to which you are holding back, is that okay? And again, I don't think the show either fully condemns him or fully lets him off the hook for that. So again, it's balancing these two characters, these two diametrically opposed characters, really, really well. There's also like some surprisingly, like some small quiet moments, but some really good moments with some other characters, such as between, say, Cyclops and Cable. Like where Cable's like, "You're gonna tell me to be careful," and Cyclops just goes, "Nah, give him hell." I'm like, oh, that's nice. I like that. Or this was a great moment. Like this, this was so good and was so quick. When Forge and Beast are talking about how they're going to stop Bastion and how they can modify this neuralizer collar to completely neutralize his abilities permanently. And Storm, with no words, makes it immediately clear that is not acceptable, because she has just gone through believing that she had permanently lost what she could do, and she refused to do that to anyone else, no matter who they are. So she is the correct person to deliver that, and the way that that is delivered is short, to the point, and also like, oh, okay. Yep. Nope, we won't do that. And you can argue whether or not she's correct, but like that's really good. that's real good. The ending beat with the with Magneto, finally pulling the pulling the whole thing of removing the metal out of Logan's skeleton. I mean, I guess it's a decent enough moment as a cliffhanger. That's one of those moments that, like, it's iconic because, like, that's a messed up idea in, like, a really cool way. But also, I don't really like one because I don't like the bone claws. Like, I've never liked the bone claws. In my mind, his only innate mutation should just be his healing factor. He didn't even have claws until they were put in there by the Weapon X program. That's my preferred version of things. And that's basically how it was before the bone claws were introduced in I think, the 90s. So don't like those in general. But even beyond that, like, they kind of end on this image that's very much a recreation of an iconic panel from the comic. But that's just it. It's very static. They don't do a lot with the actual animation to, like, really bring that moment across. And maybe they couldn't, because I think if you were going to accurately portray that in full motion animation, it'd probably be horrifying to the point that they might not air it. Like, that'd be really, really hard to do. And maybe that's why. But I don't know. It felt a little cheap. Like, as a visual. I don't know. Maybe that's me. Other than that, there's a real good job in the tension between the two teams, each one kind of counting on the other, not knowing if the other one's going to succeed. Scott going against the professor strictly with the intent of giving the other team more time. The professor willing to take that extra step of controlling Magneto's mind in order to use his powers to reverse what's happened, which is, no matter what, no matter whose side you're on, is objectively a horrifying thing to do. And the show makes it very clear this is horrifying with the visualization on Magneto and the way he's screaming as it happens. Like, this is horrible what Charles is doing. And of course, Charles has the very classic excuse, you leave me no choice. There is always a choice. You can make the decision that this is the best choice under the circumstances, but there is literally no situation in which you have no choice. You might be in a situation where you have only bad choices. And even if you make what is, by most people's measures, the best choice under the circumstances, that also doesn't absolve you of the consequences or the morality of the situation. Like, if you're in a situation where you believe the only thing that you can do that, or rather, I guess you believe that the best thing that you can do, given a whole bunch of terrible options, is something that is more or less objectively a horrible thing to do, that might be understandable. That might even be justified. But it also doesn't mean that you get to pretend there weren't horrible consequences or that wasn't a horrible thing you did. So, again, this feels like it's grappling with all this complexity really well. Again, in a real short runtime. I'm impressed with how well this is grappling with the moral questions that it's dealing with in a very compact time. And let me tell you, especially these days, I miss compact storytelling. We live in an age where standard runtime for movies has crept up to 2 hours. We are getting more and more 2.5 hour, even 3-hour movies. And like, I miss the days when your standard runtime was between 1.5 hours and 1.45 hours. And your standard animated film runtime was between 80 and 90. I miss that tightness. I miss the work that was gone into to really tell those stories with getting as much out of them as you could. Not rushing, but finding a way to do everything at a good pace and at a good clip. And like, in addition to longer movies, we also live in an age where it feels like nearly every show is now serialized. We don't have episodic anymore. We don't have very many shows anymore that are taking something and go, okay, in this 20 minutes or 40 minutes or however long it is, we are going to tell a complete story and we need to grapple with the complexities of it. Instead, it's, we will deal with the complexities of this over an entire season, if not multiple seasons, which it just makes me appreciate doing so much with so little time the way that this does. I miss stuff like this. And again, I will remind you, I did not like the original X-Men animated series very much. I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't think it was very good, even at the time. Its main thing that I would say is, like, these are fairly accurate representations of mostly some good stories from the comics. That was kind of it. Whatever was good about it because the comics it was pulling from were mostly good. This is very much elevating the source material. This is taking the source material, reconfiguring it, embodying it, and doing what that source material did in a way that doesn't just feel like a copy paste, where it doesn't just feel like why this is good is because the source material is good. This took a source material that was good and compiled it in a really interesting, dynamic way that I am enjoying a lot, and I'm going to be kind of sad when the season's over. X-Men 97, episode 9. What did you think of this one? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Those all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can come on back next time you need a break. Now to give my thanks to my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfula, Radha Oliver B., Tarak, the Thing That Goes Doink in the Anime, Jean Foray, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Bernabi Likes the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Toka Blahuvian, Pal Barabajoggle, and Mara G. Thank you so much for your support. You can get your name said, maybe even correctly, in the Patreon support tiers. Also, it helps me feed these little buggers.